It is very easy to prove a MAGA Republican wrong because all of their claims are based on feelings. They operate within this petty personal politics that completely ignores facts, stats, and logic. It is why, when they try to argue, they so quickly collapse in upon themselves. And that's exactly what we saw from a screaming Ted Cruz tonight on Caitlin Collins' show, in which the argument, this false narrative he tried to push about the Charlie Kirk shooting that Donald Trump is using to cover up the many failures of his administration, so quickly blew up in his face to the point that he melted down on air. We are going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into the nonsense that Ted Cruz was screaming and spewing on air, I want to start with someone who is actually talking about the real issue here. That is Tim Walz remembering his friend Melissa Hortman and calling out the lack of empathy, care, or action from this administration.
Melissa Hortman was a close friend of yours. She's featured heavily in your announcement video. She's clearly been top of mind for you as you've rolled out your re-election campaign. And I just have to start by asking you what went through your head, what went through your mind when you heard those remarks from Donald Trump in the Oval Office yesterday?
Well, Jen, it's good to see you, and thank you for asking. It's been pretty traumatic in Minnesota, and I think Minnesotans, certainly every Minnesotan knows Melissa Hortman's name, and most decent people do. What goes through my mind is nothing surprises me. There's no compassion, there's no empathy in this man, and there's no sense of governing for the whole country. We had a horrific act of political violence and the loss of an exceptional human being, a mom. It's hard to explain to people, and it gets reduced to a footnote. This beautiful life, this big life, Melissa, Mark, Gilbert, Melissa, she fostered and helped train service dogs, and Gilbert failed, and she told me on a wink that she said, I want him to fail so he could stay with us. And just a decent person, and probably one of the most skillful legislators I've ever worked with. Minnesota's a better state that got massive things done to improve people's lives, and you just see, you know, the disrespect and how easy that rolled off his tongue, yet we're supposed to believe that they're definitely concerned about political violence. And you see the vice president, you know, go on a podcast, it's government by podcast, to just lie and to bring hate. And they're not interested in solving this. We in Minnesota are. And I said today, announcing that I was going to run again, look, I don't think I have any, you know, you don't have a right to stay in these jobs, but I'm proud of the work we did together. I'm proud of Melissa's legacy. And I think right now, as you said, folks are standing up, and brave folks, teachers standing up for their students who bring their full selves to their classrooms. We had doctors here who patched up little bodies after they were shot with assault rifles and stood up and said, damn it, do something about this. We're tired of patching them up. Get rid of these things. And all across this country, you got people pushing back, and you've got a president that sees the presidency as his personal kingdom and a revenge tour. He's doing nothing to improve people's lives.
What Tim Walz is talking about is the truth, that Donald Trump does not actually care about anyone or anything that is not in that moment directly benefiting him or letting him use anyone suffering for the exploitation of his political gain. That is what Donald Trump is always after. It is why I have found it laughable that the right demands an apology, a condemnation, a change of heart or rhetoric from the left, from liberals, from progressives. After the shooting of Charlie Kirk, we are not responsible for the policy failure that is the epidemic of gun violence in this country. We are not responsible for increased tensions leading to political violence in this country. We are not. So when Ted Cruz tries to blame us for it, he melts down on air.
So you have both the shell casing that directly references transgenderism, and in fact, Charlie Kirk was murdered moments after he was asked a question about transgender mass shootings, and that's when the shooter filed. And so, do we have conclusive proof at this case?
Well, hold on,
no,
Senator.
But I will say this. Some of the most disturbing polling numbers that I see are the number of Democrats who believe that
Senator,
this left-wing activist was somehow Republican. I mean, that really shows the media not doing the job they should be doing.
Okay, Senator, but one moment, because you said a lot there, and we don't have a motive yet. We don't know yet. We're waiting. Obviously, we've heard what the governor's had to say, what the FBI director said today.
Come on, we don't have a motive yet.
We know
we don't have a motive yet.
What's happening with
really? That's CNN's position.
I mean, from law enforcement,
he just happened to fire the gun in celebration. You can't tell the motive.
Senator, that's not what I said, and I said law enforcement hasn't laid out a direct motive. They've laid out a lot of evidence here of these messages and what the shooter said to
They've said that he was a left-wing activist who hated Charlie Kirk. Pardon?
Senator, with all due respect, you know exactly what I'm saying. I'm not arguing with you politically. I'm saying that law enforcement has not put a specific motive. You know that there's a difference of what they're putting in a legal argument than what you're talking about. And you're not even, we're not even arguing about the facts here.
What you just said is false,
Senator,
Caitlin.
No.
Caitlin, facts. Hold on a second. Let me answer your statement, because what you said is factually
Senator, with all
false.
due respect,
law enforcement.
With all due respect, you're putting a lot of statements that I did not say. And I want to get back to, we just laid out the facts.
You
in the
just
opening
said
of the
law
show,
enforcement has not laid out a motive.
today.
That is objectively
we just spoke to the
false.
Deputy Attorney General.
That is objectively false.
They
what
have not
you were
set a
saying
concrete
is
motive of
objectively
exactly
false,
what it was.
and
They've laid out
CNN should
every
not be
evidence that we
engaged
know
in
so far.
misinformation. Caitlin, answer my question.
It's not
Have you seen the
misinformation,
polling
Senator.
that shows the vast majority of
You were
Democrats
taking what I
believe
said
this murderer is a
about
Republican and a
that.
Trump supporter? Have you seen that polling?
Let me get back to my questions, though, Senator, because the question here
You're not going to answer that
was
question?
actually
Are you going to answer
what
that
you were
question?
saying
You
about
have seen that
investigations that
polling.
you'd like to see.
So you're not going to
Senator,
answer
I'm
the
the one
question.
asking the questions here, and the question.
No, we're having a conversation. I understand that you want to say things that are factually false, and then you don't actually want the facts. You don't actually want the facts laid out. Okay, give your speech.
That's not true, Senator. I'm asking you a question.
Go ahead. I don't know what your question is, because we have a delay because you're in England, so I can't hear what you're saying.
You said that you believe that left-wing groups should be investigated. You want to know where the financing.
This argument from Ted Cruz, this idea that anyone will buy, that it is somehow the left responsible for political violence, when Donald Trump himself began his administration excusing political violence, pardoning en masse January 6 insurrectionists indiscriminately, pardoning them all. Donald Trump not only excused political violence, but he signed off on it for the future, saying anyone who acts on my behalf, you will have my backing. That is what Donald Trump has said to his supporters. That is what Donald Trump has encouraged with his jokes about Paul Pelosi. Point blank, full stop. That is what Donald Trump is saying. So spare me the outrage, Ted Cruz. Spare me the screaming meltdown on air. And good on Caitlin Collins for pushing back. But this is the cover, the guise that MAGA wants to present. For what? The expansion of their authoritarian project. That is what they want. They are not doing this for any purpose other than to benefit themselves. They don't care about responding. But Governor Walz does. He talked about it right here.
Look, I've spent the last 2 weeks sitting in the living rooms of parents who sent their children to the first couple days of school and then buried them later when 116 bullets were fired in less than 2 minutes by an assault weapon, as they said in church. And this happens all across the country. And there's always a reason. You know, the Republicans are, concerned about mental health, even though they voted against it. They're concerned that there's other things that we can do, but they've made it clear they don't want to do anything on guns. And look, I think, folks say if you come back and don't get anything done, it's a failure. It's a failure bearing children. And I don't know when it's going to stop. I've heard that saying, and I sat with those 20 families in my office as I was a member of Congress after Sandy Hook.
What absolutely confirms to me that MAGA doesn't give a shit about Charlie Kirk is there hasn't been a single step taken to do anything to respond to what ultimately led to an act of gun violence. And it's not just that. It's not just that they don't care about gun violence. They also don't care about the fact that it took Kash Patel 33 hours not to track down the shooter, because that's not what happened, to wait for the alleged assailant to be turned in by his family. It wasn't because of Kash Patel. It was, in fact, in spite of Kash Patel's actions, his firings in Utah and across the country, a mass purge of the FBI for political reasons. The same thing that is happening across our government for those who aren't necessarily even mocking Charlie Kirk in the shooting, but who are willing to post his own words and let the rest of the world observe what this man, who Donald Trump will hail as an American hero, actually believed. The disgusting bile he would spill about black women, saying that they steal jobs from white people. That's not an opinion. That is a bigoted, racist, disgusting attack. And it's not something that we should celebrate or pretend was an argument in good faith. No, it was bigotry for the purpose of his business. That's what Charlie Kirk was ultimately after. It was business. And it is the same business that Donald Trump is in, scaring people so he can exploit them. And he's certainly doing it in D.C. right now. Governor Walz called it out.
Where are the don't tread on me people? We were told for years that we needed to be prepared about an overbearing federal government that would step in over local control and actually put troops on the streets. I mean, where are those people? And I would just ask them to rise up. And this isn't the way things should be done. And again, he doesn't really have any interest in stopping the crime. If he did, he would go with the professionals. He would listen to local law enforcement. He would coordinate with us.
This administration's response in the wake of the Charlie Kirk shooting mirrors so much of what their authoritarian project looks like, as it is related, of course, to this crackdown on supposed crime. It is not real, and it can't be taken seriously. And to me, it can't even be qualified. We can't start with a but you know, we really care about crime, but you know, Donald Trump isn't responding well enough. We don't want his response, but we do care about crime. Do you know the best way to show that you care about crime? Talk about the policies that you know actually fight crime by investing in keeping communities safe, not just through mass policing or surveillance, but investing in childcare, keeping kids off the streets, making education more affordable, making food more available. That is how you make communities safe in the long run. That is actual policy. Talk about it. Demonstrate its success. That is how we win. That is what we are going to continue to talk about on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And if you need something to pick you up, check out my interview with Wes Moore. We had a great time. It is a little bit more uplifting than what we've been talking about lately. And I'd really appreciate you checking it out. Keep on fighting. Don't let anyone silence you. And until next time, I'll see you soon.